Oh, welcome to another episode of the Growth Compass. Shout out to the sponsor senders. If you want to email deliverability correctly, there's a link under this video where you're watching both of our heads say sounds and words. But without them, it wouldn't be possible to interview awesome people doing really cool things that both of us have to be very passionate about, like Charlie. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Blake. Great to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
And of course. So, for anyone out there that doesn't know what you guys are doing out in Colorado, LA, I don't know how distributed your team is, but there's one word that sticks out to me on your website, and it's geothermal energy, which is a concept that I'm excited about. So, if you could just give a brief introduction of yourself and what you're building.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Charlie Rogers. I'm the Strategy and Operations Associate at Bedrock Energy. Bedrock Energy is a geothermal heating and cooling provider. And for a lot of the listeners out there that are asking, what is that? That's a very fair question. And Blake, happy to dive into what geothermal actually is, but we'll defer to you on where we want to take this.
Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I'd rather hear you describe that than me because I think you're a little more involved than I am. But before we get into what you guys are doing now and all of that, just a little bit about how did you end up in this industry? Have you always been interested in clean tech, climate tech? Like, what did you study that led you here? Prior professional experiences? Have you always been in strategy and growth and stuff like that? Um,
Yeah, so I actually had an interesting journey to get here. So I would say I grew up in LA, and my life has always been dominated by kind of two themes. One is the desire to make a positive impact on the world, and the second is to solve really difficult challenges. So throughout high school and college, I was, very interested in the climate crisis because of the ability to serve kind of both those desires. I think the climate crisis is one of is probably the biggest issue facing our society today, and it's an extremely intersectional challenge that requires knowledge across a lot of different sectors and thinking about a lot of different stakeholders. So my singular life mission is to help make a positive impact on the climate. Going into college, I went to Princeton and studied mechanical and aerospace engineering with a minor in sustainable energy. And my plan was to build awesome sustainable energy technology from an engineering side of things and save the world that way. After a few engineering internships, I came to realize that building technology and engineering is really hard, and it takes a bunch of people all working together to accomplish something great. The other thing that I realized is if you want to have as big of an impact as possible on the climate, capitalism is really going to be your singular tool to spur collective action. The only way to motivate people that I've found is through capitalism, which pushed me from the world of engineering to the world of business. So, learning that, I joined Boston Consulting Group, BCG, out of college with still the desire to really elevate my position in the business world to be able to make decisions with high leverage on impacting the climate. I learned a ton at BCG and really enjoyed my experience there. But ultimately, working at a management consulting firm, I felt like I lacked the control to actually decide, what I was working on, how I was going to address the climate crisis. And also had a desire that I still have to ultimately be a climate founder. So I pivoted from management consulting at Boston Consulting Group, working on a series of energy and climate related projects, to being the right hand of the CEO, Jocelyn Lai, who is fantastic, incredible leader of Bedrock Energy, and get to work on decarbonizing buildings every day.
So what specifically from your time at BCG translates to what you're doing now? How long have you been at Bedrock?
So I've been at Bedrock for about 3 months. I would say the biggest thing that translates from BCG is the importance and skills of communicating effectively. Um, at Bedrock, there's a variety of different perspectives all coming together to work on, really difficult technology. I think geothermal is a very unique industry because it leverages a lot of oil and gas technology and talent, and you marry that with, kind of your traditional tech world type of folks, and getting everyone supporting the same mission and driving towards the same thing really requires a lot of communication and alignment, even in a company as small as Bedrock that's only 25 people. So I would say, both internally and externally, the ability to effectively communicate is probably my biggest takeaway from BCG.
So what you said you worked on a number of climate tech related projects um, at BCG. What did you learn about the climate tech space? Because I assume, this is from a place of ignorance, so you let me know. But I would assume that BCG is working on some like super massive types of projects, potentially with like big oil or like plastics or like massive companies like that. So again, from my perspective, I think having a smaller company working on a startup like what you're doing has, does more to move the needle, but there is still, I think if you want to be optimistic, like BCG, you could say does good work as well. But I'm just curious on, because we'll dive into what you're doing now and all of that more. But from a perspective of, really trying to all over the world, like do stuff about this, BCG is a player to whatever degree, but like from your perspective, what was the impact of those projects, and how did that shape your perspective of climate tech as a whole?
Totally. That's a fantastic question. It's something that I've grappled with a lot in my early career. At BCG, which, by the way, does incredible things for the climate and is very committed to making a positive impact on the world. Uh, I got to work on, I would say, my two most climate and energy focused projects were on interregional transmission. So, bolstering the build out of the electric grid, which also plays in a little bit to what we're doing at Bedrock. I'm happy to touch on that later. And also working for a electric vehicle startup, building a pitch deck for them. So I was definitely involved in climate, energy, sustainability stuff. But as a BCG associate, you come in as a generalist and you're not necessarily sector specific until many years later. So you have to network internally to get placed on these projects, which can be difficult because a lot of folks are fantastic at BCG and very altruistic and want to get on these projects. So it's very competitive to work in that space, and you're not guaranteed to continue to do that. Whereas when you go to a climate tech startup, that's what you're driving towards every day. I think that's one thing. So control and certainty that you're working on that. The other more global thing that I've been grappling with, and I still am, is this bifurcation between what I call the insider and the outsider track. So the insider track, BCG, working your way up in a large corporation, maybe even an oil and gas giant, and then working your way up all the way to CEO or some executive role and having extremely high leverage to cut emissions on a huge base of emissions. So like let's say you're the CEO of Chevron and you cut emissions by 1%. That is a massive impact on the world, probably larger than any climate tech startup that you could dream of. Maybe like save Tesla, right? That takes decades of putting your head down and very frustrating work where you're talking with people that share different perspectives from you. Not bad work at all, but very frustrating decades to get to that spot. Then there's the outsider track where you could be a climate founder, work on some emerging technology, and make a huge impact that way. Um, Sorry, I may have cut out there. Make a huge impact that way. But to scale up to the size of that insider track level is also extremely difficult. So what I would say is that, and what really drove my decision is that outsider track sounded a lot more enjoyable from a personal perspective of like getting to really feel like I'm making an impact every day, and kind of incrementally driving towards something. But I would say that the climate transition and the energy transition more broadly is a huge problem. And there are places for everyone to plug in with what they enjoy and with what they are best suited at. So there's some people that are going to be suited for that insider track. There's some people that are suited for the outsider track, and there's some people that are suited for something completely different. So my desire for everyone is everyone can work on climate, whether it be professionally, uh, outside, just in your daily life. Like, this is a problem for everyone to solve together. And I try and change everyone that I meet into what I call a climate person. Like, this, we need to all care about this. And I encourage everyone to find the best way to plug into this transition and help out.
Let's go. Let's
Oh,
go.
yeah, exactly. Let's go. We can do this. A lot of people get really frustrated, and it's sad, and I get it. It's tough to work on it every day, but it's also like extremely positive, and you're helping the world every day. It's very motivating. I wake up and get out of bed excited to help out. It's a great thing.
That's right, because it's so cool, man. Climate, I mean,
Exactly
like
right.
you said, simultaneously, while, there's a lot about it that can be very heavy, I think a lot of the solutions that are responding to those challenges are just really cool and inspiring, and the people inside it are really cool.
And Blake, like you're elevating the transition by doing this podcast. So we really appreciate that, and I'm hoping that your voice and other people's voices continue to inspire people around the country and the world. Yeah,
Hey, thanks, Charlie. Well, that little piece that you just gave, man, that was inspiring me. Um, so your role is, you said, strategy and sales.
strategy and operations. Yep.
Strategy and operations. Does that have to do with sales growth outward like that?
It does, yeah. So the way that I see the role is it's essentially a chief of staff role. The CEO, Jocelyn, and I are based in LA, and the rest of the company is headquartered in Austin. So I'm sitting with Joss every day, and we're working on stuff. And I'm basically her right hand, just helping her out with whatever work stream she's doing. Obviously, that covers a lot of things as the CEO, but I would say my work is bifurcated into kind of four buckets. The first is just general strategic and operational initiatives. So mostly, looking at our workforce and ramping up our labor, coming down the cost curve, like things like that that are associated with running the business and deploying our technology. There's also go to market support. So, like you said, helping out with sales. What that generally looks like is modeling paybacks for customers, interfacing with folks, reaching out to utilities, stuff like that. And there's a third bucket of kind of just general org management. So, making sure the management team and all the executives are aligned on where we're going, and, setting up agendas for management meetings, things like that. But just, keeping the org functioning appropriately. And then the fourth is kind of like external communications, events like this fantastic event we're doing tomorrow in Hayden, where we're showcasing our next generation drilling. So we're actually meeting the governor today on site, and the two senators of Colorado, Michael Bennett and Senator Hickenlooper, are both coming tomorrow to speak. So it's very exciting.
Oh yeah, congrats. Well, cool.
Yeah.
So, um, how big is the team that's dedicated to? Because you're very technical, very tech heavy product development
Yeah,
type of company. So,
totally.
how big is your team that is focused on go to market?
So go to market wise, we have a customer engineer, we have myself, and then we have Joss, the CEO. We recently hired a product lead, which I would say, about 20% of her time is focused on go to market, as the go to market priorities of your customers are going to inform the way that you develop your product. But, really focused on just go to market, I would say it's our customer engineer, Joss, and me.
So, how would you describe where Bedrock is at as far as commercialization, customer acquisition, these types of things? Because I think the development of tech heavy, hard tech in general is just years of product development, and then when you get to a spot where you've hopefully done a couple of pilots, like you've developed past those, and then you're looking to acquire customers. It's like even then you only have a few people doing it, and then you have to have this massive effort to continue, evolving the product as you get feedback and you go through trials and stuff. So yeah, where are you guys at in that journey? How long has Bedrock been around, and how would you describe how you're approaching that
Yeah.
among the three of you?
Yeah, Blake, it's a great question. So the first thing, as one of my biggest takeaways from Bedrock and working, for a climate tech startup, is hard tech is hard. It is very hard to develop new technology.
Yeah.
And Bedrock is a technology developer. We're not just a driller, we are developing next generation technology to deploy geothermal heating and cooling at scale. So just quickly, I'm gonna veer off just to describe what we actually do. So
Thank you.
Bedrock produces these geothermal bore fields, which is it's basically a construction project. So you have a big, truck size drilling rig that bores 1,000 foot boreholes down into the ground. You put a U loop filled with water down into the ground, and you leverage the Earth's constant temperature to make heating and cooling more efficient. So, Bedrock's been around for 3 years. This project in Hayden, Colorado, which is our active drilling project, is our third commercial deployment. We're also deploying a project right now in Gunnison, Colorado, so that would be our fourth. And right now, we only have one drilling rig. By the end of 2026, we're going to have three drilling rigs, which will enable us to significantly scale up.
Wow.
And our drilling rig right now is called Titan One. So Titan One is kind of an MVP, minimum viable product, where we've taken together a bunch of different oil and gas and water well drilling technology, kind of Frankensteined it together in a drilling rig that works incredibly well, better than any drilling rig in the industry. But it's not perfectly designed for all the things that Bedrock needs. So Bedrock has four core pillars of our technology stack: two software products and two hardware products. So the two hardware products are Titan, which is this drilling rig, and Ranger, which is a downhole telemetry system. So essentially, a sensor that you're sending downhole 1,000 feet down. Our two software products are what's called Oracle, which is a subsurface modeling software, and Vanguard, which is a drilling automation software. So you got Titan, which is our big drilling rig. You deploy Ranger downhole, and then you use the data coming out of Ranger with our software suite for drilling operations Vanguard. So you use the data and the software to make drilling, easy and automated. We get seeing while drilling technology, which enables us to track exactly where our borehole is going. Most drillers are, drilling completely blind when they are going down there. They can veer off in different directions, like hit natural gas utility infrastructure. There's an example of a driller actually drilling a Boston University project and going into the river because they veered so far. So we're able to significantly de-risk geothermal construction with our hardware software technology. And then Oracle, which is our subsurface AI-based modeling technology, enables us to predict exactly how your bore field is going to perform over months, years, decades, and enable you to, perfectly size your geofield so you're not spending extra money developing an oversized system. So that was a roundabout way of our technology. Basically, we're deploying Titan One and all of these technology suites across our three commercial projects. We're developing Titan V1.5 with the revenue we're generating through our first commercial deployments, and then going to continue to generate that revenue to ultimately develop Titan V2, which is our, that's going to be like our Bedrock customized flagship drilling rig. That will, we're going to produce a bunch of those, and that's how we're really going to scale. But I would say the key to our go-to-market strategy, and I think this is key for a lot of hard tech companies, is you need a lot of money to
Yeah.
build hard tech solutions, and funding that with commercial projects is the best way to do that. SpaceX did the same thing, launching their initial rockets with early commercial contracts, and then ultimately going to super heavy. So we kind of view our product in a similar way, where we're funding R&D through commercial deployment.
So then is your uh are you facilitating the construction of a geothermal setup? Do you own the operations after that, or are you doing it on behalf of somebody else? Like, is it a contracted like project essentially?
Blake. Another fantastic question. So that actually gets into a bit of our product roadmap. So right now, Bedrock is focused on being the best driller out there. So right now we are being hired by towns, real estate developers, even general contractors building these systems as a drilling contractor. So
Any kind of drilling?
geothermal drilling.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
we are being hired to build and install these systems for our customer. The
Okay.
long-term vision is to actually own and operate these geothermal systems and provide energy as a service, similar to owning a solar farm type thing.
Okay, so well, at the moment, since you have those two hardware products, those two software products, so the hardware thing makes sense where they say, "Hey, we're trying to do a geothermal project and we want to do it correctly," and then you're
Yeah,
like, "Well, we can guarantee 100% that not only will you do it correctly, but you'll do it the best out of
exactly
anybody
right.
out there." But then do they subscribe to the access of the software products thereafter, and that's the commercial relationship moving forward.
Yeah. So for Vanguard, one of the software products, that's in more of an internal facing software product used by our drillers while they're constructing the product. So
Okay, all
not
right.
subscribing to that. Oracle is also semi-internal, but it can be used externally, and it would be used to do like a design study of your heating and cooling load of your building, and thus how much, how many boreholes, how many vertical feet of geosystem you need.
Okay.
So they would be paying for a design contract to use our system.
So then what is the problem? Like what is it you guys are solving specifically? You say you reach out to utility, so I guess utility are your ideal customer persona at the moment. But
I would say,
how
yeah,
how would
it's
you
our,
describe
our,
that?
our customers right now are real estate developers and utilities, depending on the scope and scale of projects. And it's a great question. What geo sounds so great? Like, why isn't everyone doing geo?
That's right.
And you know, geo's been around for a while as well. Geo's been around for 100 years, and
Yeah.
it's not scaled at all. I think it's less than 1% of U.S. buildings use geothermal heating and cooling systems. And
Gotta
there's a couple
change that.
reasons. And exactly, there's a couple reasons why that is. Um, the first, and I think this is the fundamental nature of the climate transition that a lot of people maybe don't realize is energy transitions are sacrificing upfront capex for reducing your opex down the line. So you're paying for a system that will reduce your operational expenditure, but there's an upfront cost to do that.
Sure.
So I think the high upfront cost of geo is one barrier to mass deployment, and that is the main thing that we're focused on at Bedrock is coming down the cost curve to enable more customers to build and install geothermal systems. The other big barrier is lack of space. So you need a certain amount of surface area to drill your boreholes. Bedrock is solving that by drilling deeper than all of our competitors. So if you drill, 1,000 feet down instead of 500 feet down, you need half the amount of boreholes and thus half the space, right? Um, I would say like the third and other big bucket is geothermal construction is like not scaled, and it's seen as a risky construction process. I mentioned that Boston University
Yeah.
project that went awry. It's difficult to de-risk a technology that has not been deployed at scale yet. And our Vanguard and Ranger technology, our seeing while drilling technology, will enable us to provide de-risk consistent construction every time
Gotcha.
for our customers.
Okay, so then the well, I guess the last question on this is that so short term and long term, the customers that you're serving at the moment are the customers that you're looking to serve because these are the people that are doing geothermal, or are you looking to transition in the future
Yeah, I would
somehow?
say it's utilities, real estate developers, large campuses, really anyone with a large HVAC demand is a perfect candidate for geo. Even data centers use a ton of cooling, so Bedrock particularly targets commercial and industrial customers. And what kind of system is best for each customer is very different, but that's the long term model certainly. Yeah.
How does regulation or regulatory environments play into your either ability to even operate in some places, or the probability that someone's going to be open to it? Is it state by state? Is there something federal that's relevant to you guys?
Yeah. I'm going to separate that regulatory environment thing into two buckets. First is permitting, and second is kind of the incentive environment. So, starting with permitting, geo is actually a very simple permitting process. The majority of permits are very similar to drilling water wells, which we've been doing for a long time, and the permitting is relatively straightforward and pretty easy to acquire. In the second bucket for incentives, I'm going to first start with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So the IRA provided incentives for a bunch of clean energy projects. The One Big Beautiful Bill rolled back a lot of those incentives for wind and solar, particularly, but it did not roll back any of the incentives for geothermal heating and cooling. So we are very well positioned to continue to receive investment tax credits of up to 40% on our system capex. So it's a huge carrot provided by the OVBA that was also provided by the IRA. So that's great. There's also local incentives at a state and utility level that can further contribute to decreasing costs of customers. So that's something that we're actively working on with our utility customers and those that are kind of providing these clean heat incentives.
Well, I guess I mean for as I mean that's great to hear as far as the big beautiful bill, because that there are a lot of people that felt all types of ways about it, but I'm glad that
Yeah,
it positively impacts you guys, or I guess doesn't negatively impact you guys.
the latter is a
Um,
better way of phrasing it.
yeah, right. But as far as like you're saying, the state and local environments, I mean, obviously you guys are Colorado's like hell yeah, get this stuff in this state,
Totally.
but are there any other states that are for whatever reason, like very particularly interested in the expansion of geothermal?
Yeah, I would say Massachusetts and New York are big for geo. In terms of where geo is best fit for purpose, if you think about geothermal technology from a baseline perspective, it is using the ground as a buffer against extreme air temperatures. So the efficiency gains you get from geo directly scale with how extreme your winters and summers are. So if you have super hot summers versus and super cold winters, geo is going to save you that much more in terms of your energy usage, reducing peak demand, and all of that. So my pitch to the country and to the world is, if you have extreme climate, geo is the best thing that you can do to not only reduce your overall energy consumption, carbon consumption, but also um, to limit your stress on the electric grid.
So I mean, it seems like a good option anyway. But you're saying for a like on on the other side of it, let's take somewhere, I don't know, like San Francisco. That
Sure.
it
Yeah,
does go up and down, but like it's up is like decently hot and it's down is like 16 overcast.
totally.
So are you? It's still a good move. It's just in those places, it's not like as much of a wow. That's what you're
Exactly right.
saying.
That's exactly right. Yes.
All right,
But
awesome.
it's still
So
the most efficient form of heating and cooling we can do.
right. Are there any limitations as far as what the ground is made of, as far as drilling into it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually, something that we work a lot on at Bedrock. One of the benefits of Bedrock and one of our competitive advantages is we are able to handle any subsurface conditions and drill anywhere. A lot of
Really?
people run into challenges with varying subsurface conditions, and one of the biggest things that surprised me is how variable the subsurface conditions are. So there are times where we are drilling a borehole over here and you go 1,000 yards or 100 yards elsewhere and the subsurface is completely different. I would say yes, there are certainly a lot of challenges and it's something that our engineering team has to grapple with, but none of these challenges are insurmountable from a technology perspective, and it's really about tweaking your processes and technology slightly to enable you to drill in that condition.
Cool. What is from your perspective, and we talked a lot about positioning customers, things like this. What But you can answer it however you'd like. What's the biggest hurdle for you at the moment, or like at Bedrock,
It's a good
or one
question.
of them?
Yeah.
And how is it
Um,
also an opportunity? That's the other half of the question.
cool. Love it. Um, I would say the biggest hurdle is scaling up our technology fast enough to meet all of this demand for drilling.
That's
There's a ton of people that want to install geothermal, and especially as Bedrock comes down the cost curve, that's only going to increase. What is difficult is ensuring we're able to scale up not only our number of rigs, but also the supporting infrastructure of the company fast enough to serve all this growing demand. So, like I said, we're going from one rig to three rigs by the end
that's
of
right.
2026. By the end of 2027, we'll maybe be at 7 to 10 rigs. So, not only scaling up the technology from an investment building materials perspective, but also a lot goes into running these construction sites. It's not a simple thing. So ensuring that we have the appropriate team in place to handle all of this new operations is going to be critical for us. I would
Hey,
say the
that's
opportunity there
yeah.
is we're going to get to serve a lot more customers and we're going to get to decarbonize a lot more buildings. So,
Yeah,
uh,
well, right. Yeah, that's. I mean, that seems like good. Good problem to have. It's like
yeah,
yeah. And then lastly for you, and this is one of my favorite questions is, but it seems, you've kind of already touched on this, but what inspires you to continue doing this?
yeah, good question. This kind of goes back to my first point. I'm singularly driven to help reduce emissions in our world, and what inspires me is knowing that I think that this problem, the climate problem, has the greatest ability to positively impact the most people of any problem. So knowing that what I'm doing every day is hopefully contributing to helping a bunch of people's lives is my biggest motivation.
Yeah, let's go.
Oh,
So yeah, exactly. So if anyone else was inspired to either connect or follow along, what's the best way to do that?
yeah. So you can hit up our website, bedrockenergy.com. You can reach out to me, Charlie at bedrockenergy.com. We're also on LinkedIn. So at any channel, we're ready to reach out and continue the conversation.
Well, let's go, Charlie. Thank you so much. This is so cool. I'm excited to stay in touch, see where you guys go. We'll see you in the next one.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Blake. Appreciate it.
All right.